Welcome to episode 2 of the Strike Eagle podcast. I'm your host. Welcome to episode 2 of the Strike Eagle podcast. I'm your host, Irving Hill. Today, we got one of my good friends from the Gram, host of the Morning Formation podcast, KP. How you doing today, my brother? And we lost your sound.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. All right, let's do this again. Go ahead. KP, tell us about yourself, brother.
Yeah, so a little bit about me. So I was born in Hawaii and finished up my high school in the state of Ohio. So early on, I had a pretty big cultural diversity experience, I guess you could say. But I learned early on that there's a lot of great people all across this great nation. And I actually had an opportunity to live in a very tropical environment and in a very rural farming community at the same time.
Tropical.
Right. And not tropical, no doubt. And so that's kind of how things started out for me. My parents never really got along. So at the age of 13, my father retired out of the military and at the same time divorced my mom, gave me a chance to move with him to Ohio. So plucked me off the islands, put me in the middle of nowhere. And then went through high school, played football, wrestled a few years, and then ran track and had a pretty good experience. I actually, when it came time to figure out like what was that next step, my dad just straight up cold-heartedly, like a true Army Ranger, told me, he's like, well, you weren't smart enough to get a scholarship, so you can join the military. How about that? And
Wow.
of course, I didn't think anything else. I had no interest in the military prior to him telling me that. And then so I thought, well, I guess I got to join the military. And stupid me, like I didn't look into the Air Force or the Navy or anything like that. I just looked into the Army, and I was getting ready to sign up to go active duty into the Army. And at the 11th hour, my dad sort of pulled me aside and said, look, I really want you to go to college. How about you decide to maybe go into the reserves or something, or look into the reserves and see if there's something there for you. And so I did, and it just so happened my one of my old football coaches happened to be a National Guard reserve or National Guard recruiter.
Okay.
And yeah, man, so it worked out to where I was able to sign up for the National Guard, and at the time my state was offering 100% tuition assistance. So 3 days after high school, yeah, money, man. 3 days after high school, went to basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, finished up my AIT, started doing the National Guard drill thing, started going to college at Wright State University, also known as Wright State Wrong College, because everybody in Ohio loves Ohio State. But I did that on purpose because I knew myself. I knew that I would never survive in a true like big Division I college. Like I knew that the party scene was just going to be too much for me. So did my 4 years there, enlisted, and then my junior year of college, one of my NCOs gave me the idea to consider getting commissioned. And so joined the ROTC program, got my commissioning. And the next thing you know, the day that I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I also pinned on my butter bar, went active duty.
Okay.
Yeah, went active duty into the Army. Wanted to make my dad salute me. So had a big point to prove there, right? So he was my first salute, which meant a lot to me. And then I was stationed at Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. Right off the bat, was sent to Iraq. Within my first 30 days of being on the island, brand new second lieutenant. Didn't expect that at all. This was 2004, so it was sort of at the height of everything that was going on at the time, and I thought, and this is a very big teaching point, and I kind of thought that I would do sort of the textbook leadership like play screening, right? Where I get commissioned, I go to my first duty station, I spend some time in garrison, I build that rapport with my soldiers, and then I deploy. it didn't happen like that at all. Like I went to a unit that had just deployed the day that I arrived, basically like the first week after I arrived. Then they gave me 30 days, and then I met up with them a month later in Iraq. So my first platoon was in combat. And not only that, but they were transportation. So even though I was truly trained as an ordnance officer, which I hated that branch so much, I ended up going into transportation, and I kind of stayed there the rest of the time. So
That's
it was,
crazy that your experience was the complete opposite of mine.
oh
Because
yeah.
when I was in the Air Force, my squadron, I don't know how high your tempo was for deployments, but ours, we're non-deployable because we're test side.
Hmm.
So unless we do like TCN duty or something like that, and we watch like Arabs build computers and stuff like that, like we're not going anywhere. We did, however, go TDY a lot. So like we went to Key West, Savannah, Alaska, Nellis. We've been to Red Flag a bunch of times. Um, so it's funny how like you just had the completely opposite experience because I never went anywhere other than stateside.
When you say TCN, are you talking about third country national?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's funny. TCN duty. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I didn't expect it at all, man. So yeah, I learned pretty much under fire right off the bat. I had to learn the hard way. I guess I didn't get that garrison time. So anyways, did my 4 years, got out as an O3 captain. Got my first graduate degree while I was in after my deployment, and then transitioned out, started working in aeronautics, and then kind of bounced
Okay.
around after that to different jobs, and eventually it led me here, man, to start the podcast. I really missed the overall opportunity to be part of the platoon, be part of the company, and actually have a positive impact on folks. So, here I am connecting with people like yourself and others out there who are sort of reaching back and building a brand and helping out, I guess, folks within the military, which I
Yeah.
feel like prior to the internet, we really didn't do a whole lot of that very well.
No, and I mean, it sounded like to me like you had some people that were in your life, even prior to serving, that really helped guide you and gave you like some really good guidance on like, hey, I really suggest you do this. I really think you should do this. This is a better trajectory for you. Um, which again, I did the opposite. I was just like, oh, I'm joining the Air Force. Well, why would you do anything but work on airplanes in the Air Force?
Yeah, I was very fortunate to be sort of at the right place at the right time when it came to my career, I guess, guidance and journey. Another side to that too is like I was willing to listen, and I think a
Yeah,
lot of people. I was just talking to someone the other day about considerations for that next chapter, and in their mind, they're still like adrenaline rush, kick doors in, like, and I'm thinking,
yeah,
bro, that someday you're going to go to that next chapter when you have a kid, and when things slow down, like that thing, like you want to prepare for that.
yeah.
And so I just didn't feel like I was really getting through to them. But yeah, so I
It
think it was
happens.
important. It's important to be like at the right place around the right people, but also it was important for me to at least take it into consideration, anyways.
Now walk me through your journey of like the the day you thought like, man, I need to start this podcast. Like people need to know our story. Like walk me through that.
So yeah, man, I actually was voted most theatrical in my senior class, believe it or not. And so
Okay.
the idea of sort of being on stage and, I guess publishing myself and being out there has always been a part of like what I sort of enjoy doing. I was always like shy and kind of introverted, so I made myself join the theater right while I was in high school, and it helped me with my speaking in general, and it helped me like in the military too, like just standing in front of the formation and being able to talk to groups of people. Oh, you
Yeah.
have like dozens of eyes like literally looking at you at one time, and they're hanging off of your hanging off your words and what you say. And um I when I got out of the military, two things. So first of all, I knew I wanted to do something with content creation. Second of all, I really missed the opportunity. Like in the morning formation, I'm not a morning person. I hate the morning. I hate waking up early. I like sleeping in. But what I really missed about it was the fact that it gave me an opportunity after a long weekend to check in with folks, to check on health and welfare, take accountability, disseminate information. Like it was a one-stop time of the day where everybody was together before they all went off into their different sections and did whatever they had to do for that day and for the whole week. So
Yeah.
for me, I sort of started out just playing around online, making videos about dumb things here and there. And then I started listening to podcasts, and I started developing a really deep, um, I guess, relationship through the audio of like just looking at, like as I'm driving, looking into the clouds or just driving, focused on driving, but then also using my ears to really absorb like what was being said.
Hmm.
And I thought to myself, man, you know what? It would be really nice if I could start a platform where I can speak to folks who can talk about those pain points, but then talk about solutions or possibly come up with some answers to I guess some of the more trivial things that have been ailing our overall military community, whether they're spouses or they're veterans. So I mean, this probably happened about it all started about 6 years ago, I guess, the
Okay,
journey to where I am now.
that's fantastic. So why should somebody who is currently getting out, or maybe they've been out, let's say they're in their first year time frame, why should they start a podcast?
So you should start a podcast. Um, I think that if you are there's definitely leaders and there's followers, there's players and there's coaches in life. There's people that have certain roles. Now, I don't think that everyone and anyone out there should start a podcast. I think that if you are someone who passionately enjoys talking about any specific subject and you can palate that subject, then yes, you should, because nothing is worse than when I first started this podcast. When I told them what I was going to be doing, talking about military leadership, career transitioning type of topics, people are like, that sucks. Like, why don't you talk about like shit blowing up or like people getting, shot or whatever? Like, talk about some of that cool shit that we see in Hollywood, right, on TV. And I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, that's not, I mean, everyone's doing that. Like, that's not, and to me,
yeah,
that's not my passion, right? So I think that you
and
should
that
start.
that helps no one.
It doesn't. I mean, it sounds sexy, but at the end of the day, um yeah, like you said, it doesn't really help. I mean, it sounds cool to the naked ear that's never been down there before.
Yeah,
Sometimes going back to those places is not a comfortable place for
yeah,
some people. And with that being said, I think that you should start a podcast if you are so passionate that you find yourself talking to others in your community person to person, and you feel like that value can be a force multiplier when you use podcasting and you use content creation on social media. If you want to spread that message even further than your next door neighbor or your friend down the street, I definitely think that you should consider podcasting. And then secondly, here's another thing too, like with podcasting comes social media. I know a lot of folks my age, a lot of adults are like, oh, screw social media. Social media sucks. Well, social media doesn't suck if you use it properly. I mean,
yeah,
social media, in a sense, what it is imagine in the 1980s if they had given you a camera crew, a studio, a channel, a time slot, um, everything that you needed to make a commercial or to make a talk show or whatever. The only problem is you have to be the screenwriter, you got to be the actor, you have to be the producer, you have to be the director, you have to be the editor. That's a ample opportunity for you to spread your message, whatever that might be. So I think that people out there should consider doing a podcast if you find yourself, if you people are giving you feedback that what you have is of great value to them. I was just talking to a psychologist the other day, smart guy, and I told him the same thing. I said, you should consider podcasting. I was like, you positively affect people that you touch and you talk to every single
Yeah.
day. How great would that be if you would just broadcast yourself and your
Yeah.
overall message? You would speak to so many more people.
I mean, look at Jordan Peterson, and like that dude has helped millions of people.
Could you imagine if Jordan Peterson like didn't broadcast himself and just stayed in his own little community and had
Yeah.
his own circle? Like, I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No one would have heard his message, or like so many families like wouldn't have been even started the process of repairing just because of him saying something as simple as clean your room. Uh, Me personally, I understand what you're saying, but I do think you should at least try it. Do do 10 episodes. Can you do 10 episodes? Like find something that you're passionate about to talk about, even if you think it's something stupid. Like I would love to listen to a podcast about the 90s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Like that sounds dope. And if you're like really into it, like, hey, like I got my hands on this, like the original script. Like I got the costumes, like I got this stuff. I talked to the actors, like this stuff intimately. Like that's entertaining. And you may think that it sounds stupid, but there are plenty of other people out there that are interested in something that you have. And if you don't feel comfortable and like you think it sucks, you know what? It probably does suck in the beginning, but you'll get better.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the power of the internet and social media. It's like it's giving all of us a voice when we didn't have that. Like think 1,000 years
Right.
ago, like you're out there like hoeing a field or something, and like no one cares what you have to say. But now like
Right.
that person could have a podcast and somebody does care what that you have to say.
Right. I mean, there are no gatekeepers,
Yeah,
and there used to be gatekeepers. They were in Hollywood. Like, in
yeah,
order for you to be published and broadcasted, they had to accept you and they had to
yeah,
do it for you onto that tube called a television set that everyone had in their house.
yeah.
So yeah, you're
You had to
100%
figure
right.
out how to get on the radio.
Right.
And then you have
Exactly.
to follow their rules. Now we can do whatever we want. I can have a Star Wars helmet and an anime guy in my background, and no one cares.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day who does a podcast on puppy training. And you're
Okay,
you're thinking puppy training. What the hell is that? Right. It seems so niche and so category, but this guy was like super his name's Dale. He's super, super like passionate about, puppy training, dog training,
yeah,
and so
I
on and
need
so
that in my
forth. So
life.
yeah, he started a podcast. I'll actually send you the link for his content. He's a pretty good dude.
Awesome.
So yeah, man. So he started a podcast and it's doing really well. I mean, there's a group of people out there that enjoy listening to that kind of stuff and need that kind of
Yeah.
help.
Now, let's talk about the stuff that people want to know about the financials. Are you going to make money your first year?
No. I mean, I don't
No.
chances are slim. You're not going to. No,
Yeah.
because everyone is looking for that shortcut. Everyone's looking for that overnight
Yeah.
$1 million. And the chances are extremely slim. Go play the lottery. Like it's not gonna
Yeah.
happen. Like um this is one of
Unless
those
like
things.
you have someone huge in your network.
Oh yeah. If you're already connected, like I know a guy who does YouTube and he was already doing like editing for a huge YouTube star already. And so when he started his, he already had so much momentum and so much like support behind him to push his material out that he immediately started getting thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
subscribers on YouTube. And unless you have that, or unless you already have a name, like Joe Rogan, even for example, like even when he started, I mean,
Yeah. He
he
probably went
started.
like 10 years without making a dime.
Yeah, and with that being said, he had the platform. He was in the UFC. He had been on Fear Factor. He'd been in Hollywood. He had the connections. All he had to do was make a phone call, and he could have a bunch of different interesting guests on his show.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely have to dig in, and it's sort of one of those things where I mean, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
It's not a 5K. It's a marathon where you're going to get into like mile 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you're gonna start doubting yourself, and you're gonna start asking yourself, like, is this really something for me or not? Like things are getting really tough. Like, my back is starting to hurt. My knees are sore, and you have to understand that you're in this for the long haul. This isn't a
Yeah.
short term thing.
And honestly, you should sit down. And now this is where a lot of us struggle, is sitting down and setting up a plan, setting up a strategy, and just trying to, I don't want to say, because obviously you have analysis paralysis, and try and stay clear of them. Imperfect action above all else. But at the end, but you still like sit down. It's like, okay, like, what's my podcast going to look like? Like, do I have any examples of somebody who is successful? Where do I want to go? And then how do I get there? And then I was like, okay, let's make this plan. Let's watch their first podcast. How did that look like? Okay. What about the audio quality? What does that look like? Um, and really, it's like, as long as you take that imperfect action and like at least write it on a napkin, thinking about stuff. Because honestly, like, imagine some brands that want to reach out to you. They want to have a military audience, buy their thing, but it's off brand for you. Like, are you going to take that money? Of course
Yeah,
not, because that's going to burn your audience.
right.
Why the heck is KP slinging Starbucks coffee when he knows that Starbucks doesn't like really support like the military and what we do? Like, where's Black Rifle at? And so on and so forth. Like, sit down, have that plan, and try and figure out some people that are on brand for you, that like are for your audience, and always just think of the audience first. Like, that's three big things. Here I am, episode 2. Like, I'm already thinking about these things because I want to provide maximum value to my audience. And us veterans, you talk to veterans all the time. Like, we're lost out there. We don't get that. We don't get to throw on the uniform and get told what to do anymore. So like, for whatever reason, like, that left our mind, like strategy, planning. Like, we would never go out and try and fight Osama bin Laden and just grab a bunch of guys with a bunch of guns and just go out and do the mission. Like, that's not going to happen.
Right.
Do you do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. And it's sort of one of those mentalities where in the military, like even beginning of my own podcast intro, I talk about that where I say in the military, you're told what to wear, where to go, when to pivot, where to be. But what happens when that cadence fades and you're no longer wearing that uniform?
Exactly.
And I think that kind of sums everything up with what you just said, as far as you still have to go out and get it. Like you still have to go out and apply the same decision making process that you utilize in the military, and also make sure that it's organized to where, now I'm not perfect by no means. I'm still figuring out like a lot of things, but I also understand too that it's a slow grind. Nothing's going to happen
Yeah.
overnight. But there's a lot of things that I do utilize from the military, as far as like my overall decision making process whenever I'm like thinking about, like, am I going to have this affiliate, or am I going to have this guest on my show? What are they about? I think that's really important too, is making sure that you collaborate and you connect with folks out there who also have the same values, but who also are not going to embarrass you. I mean, I can tell you that there have been a few podcasters that have reached out to me, and then I find out that they've had some very they've been involved with some borderline criminal activity. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, no, we're not working together. Matter of fact, don't
Yeah.
even message me anymore. So anyone, at the end of the day, anyone can go out to Best Buy and purchase a microphone and start a podcast for free. So make
Yeah.
sure that you collaborate with the right folks, and surround yourself with the right folks as well. And you can definitely elevate yourself. And hey, it's the same in the military, right? If you hang out with 5 idiots, that makes you the 6th idiot.
Exactly.
So
you say that, and it's like a lot of people like don't even think about that. And it sounds harsh to like dump your loser friends because they're just dragging you down. But honestly, like hang out with people that want better for you and they want better for themselves.
Right. And
Um,
I have folks in my life that you might consider loser friends, but at the end of the day, and when I say that, I mean that in a sense of they're not doing the things that I do, right?
yeah,
But I have to be mindful that when I'm around them, that I not get dragged in that direction, that I'm dragging
yeah,
them in this direction. So when they ask me, hey, let's go out and get shit faced, let's go out and do this, go and do that. And I'm like, good, I got editing going on. Matter of
yeah,
fact, would you like to like sit in on it and take a listen to it? Because I'm not a follower, I'm a leader at the end of the day.
exactly.
So those folks are not malicious or anything like that.
No,
They're actually great in nature. It's just be aware of your actions and whether or not you're being drugged in that direction or are you trying to pull them to your side. Because at the end of the day, in the next like 3 to 5 years, they're gonna be like, damn, I wish I would have started this with you.
exactly. Uh, so we're coming up to the end of our time. So I do want to talk about tips. Uh, 5 tips, 10 tips, whatever. It's like let's talk specifically like podcasting. Like, give me your best tips on starting. We can talk platforms or anything.
Yeah.
Um, maybe your basic kit, like how to start. Like, let's talk this stuff. Give me the best tips for the podcast.
Yeah. So starting out right off the bat, one of my best tips for podcasting is figuring out your brand, figuring out your mission, your purpose, your why. That's really important. And then from there, once you've got those basics figured out, and you don't have to have it as clear as day, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I was talking to someone the other day, and I think that the person I was talking to is a great guy. He's got a lot of life experience, being law enforcement officer, and then also at the state level and at the federal level. And I said, you really should start a podcast because you have so much knowledge to share. And he's like, oh, I'm waiting for the perfect time. I'm waiting for the perfect brand. I'm waiting for the perfect logo. And I said, you're not, don't, don't wait for any of that perfect stuff. Like, get an idea of what you want to do, get an idea of like your logo, your brand, and just start
Yeah,
and understand that it's going to take some time. All right.
yeah,
So, like I said before, like, I guess tip number one would be figure out your why, figure out your purpose. Tip number two would be to already get mentally set in your mind that, hey, I'm not going to be Joe Rogan next week. Um,
exactly.
and then tip number three would be, in one of the biggest things, and maybe it's because I'm a little OCD, kind of a perfectionist, is to learn how to speak well. And so one of the ways that I did that was, or I helped hone my skills. I don't think I'm the best speaker in the world, but one of the ways that I did that was I joined Toastmasters.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Toast Toastmasters is an organization. They're global. They're virtual. They're in person. They're literally all
Yeah,
over the world.
yeah, they're all over
Uh,
the place.
Costs like $50 for like 6 months to join, and it's a group that basically works on speeches, presentation, and it can be pretty brutal because when you're giving a speech, they actually have someone that's counting your pet words throughout the entire speech, and at the end they'll tell you like, well, you said this or this didn't make any sense, and it's sort of hard to hear that criticism, but you need it if you're going to get
Yeah,
better. So join a group that's going to complement that, because I don't think that those types of groups only complement things like podcasting, but they also complement your work as well, like your full-time
yeah,
job. Because if you sound intelligent and you sound professional, whether you know what you're talking about or not, people are going to listen to you because
exactly.
you sound. So I guess those are my first three initial tips when it comes to podcasting. From there, things get a little more technical, where I would suggest certain things like making sure that your audio, I think audio is king. Even if you're doing
Yeah, of
YouTube,
course.
audio is king. You know, it's if your audio sucks, people are going to turn you off.
Yeah.
So, you know, those are my 3 tips.
All right. Uh, all right, KP. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You've been a huge inspiration and a huge help. Um, I definitely enjoy talking even on your podcast, which go ahead, plug yourself. Tell everybody where they can find you.
So you can find me on my main website, www.themorningformation.com. I'm also on Instagram, Morning Formation Podcast, on TikTok as well. If you go to my Instagram, you'll find the link bio for everything else in there.
Of course.
I'm on LinkedIn as well, KP Phillips. I also have the Morning Formation on there. I'm on Facebook. I'm everywhere, Irving, everywhere. So there's really no excuse on why you can't follow. I am more active probably on my Instagram and my Facebook as well as TikTok than anything else.
All right. So everybody, thank you so much for showing up. This is another episode of the Strike Eagle podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.